Hey, this is Angela with this week's Living the Shift. So when we talk about the resolution of duality and in terms of our spiritual journey and our collective evolution, eventually we have to come around to the shadow side, the dark side, or, I could do the Darth Vader voice like, Luke, I am your father. And I put some light to it because we have so over-dramatized it. We have given so much resisted energy to it that we grow this darkness, and we've grown the fear, and it's just this cyclical thing. And essentially at some point somebody will come to me when I'm working with them or just in conversation, they'll come and say, so how does this dark thing, this dark side, how does dark beings or demonic beings, how does that all fit into the bigger picture? And it really is simple. If you take away all the mythologies that we've put around it, and all of the drama that we put around it, it is fairly simple. Since we live and we've gone through this existence in this perception of duality, this illusion of duality, in its simplest form, that is the illusion of there is a me and a not me, right? So when we do that, we create that duality. And that's where we got the light and the dark, the good and the evil, the good and the bad, all that kind of stuff. So what the darkness is, right, is actually anything that encourages further separation from the oneness. And that is all based on what we call egoic resistant emotions, such as fears, anxieties, regrets, resentments, anger, guilt, doubt, sorrow, pain, that kind of stuff that we hold on to. And in doing so, we make ourselves feel more and more separate from the oneness. So what happens is, the more it exists, the more we allow it to exist, the more we then fear it or resent it or have anger at it, the more we grow it with that resistant energy. So we have grown it collectively quite a substantial bit. And the way it manifests itself in our realities is what we call shadow work, and the shadow side to us, the shadow knows, right? Yeah, I'm full of these references tonight. But anyway, so this is how it's really important during this time of shifting, okay? Whenever we have experience with what we call the darkness or the dark side or whatever, that is something that's coming from deep inside of us. There's some form of that comes out and manifests itself in our reality. And it's like when we talk about creating our reality, and there's so many different levels of this, but when we get to a certain point of consciousness, we realize that all of the stuff that surrounds us, everything that surrounds us, is a mirror to mirror back to us in some way, shape, or form. So there's some reason for us to look in the mirror. There's something, if it's resistant in any way, then it's something for us to look deep inside about us and why it irritates us. It causes fear, it causes resentment and anger, or all that kind of stuff. So we have, many of us, because we have all this level of complexity we've added since we are eternal beings, and what else is there to do, right? There are many in the collective consciousness who have agreed, for a soul agreement, to experience their lessons, their important lessons, through trauma, drama, or illness, okay? Drama is the big one, the huge one. It's called addiction to drama, and I talk about this a lot with people. Look at our media, right? Addiction to drama, addiction to blood and nastiness and violence and all that kind of stuff. All those energies of resistance. So, and why is that? Why would you say that is? We have gotten so good at not looking at ourselves, at our higher selves, that the higher consciousness of this planet is mirroring back to us to say, hey, it's not going to resolve until you look in the mirror. And we're at this point of, ripping off the Band-Aid collectively on our evolutionary journey. So guess what? It's all floating to the surface. And we can sit here and do this all day and say, I'm not looking. Nope, I'm not looking. And it'll come around over here. And you go, I'm not looking. It will whack you upside the head with a 4x4 or a 12x12 or something along those lines. It will come to us. So the more, and we have gotten to this point, this manic point, many of us collectively has gotten to this manic point of not looking at things straight in the eye, not looking straight in the mirror, and being able to release our judgment, because we have done such a great job with the ego, letting the ego run us in this existence, in this part of the consciousness of this existence, and in doing so, allowing all these resistant energies and emotions to rule us. So what is it that creates that? What is it that creates that stuff that comes into our reality that might be so over dramatic, that might take form of a dark energy or a dark spirit? Well, that's actually a part of what's inside of us. When that comes into our reality, it's something for us to look inside ourselves to see what it is that we are repressing so manically, that is creating itself in this kind of an entity in our presence. It comes to mind as a story, and I know I've used this in a webcast before, but it's been a while. There's an instructor I had in a class I took, several years back, and he told us this awesome story, and this is a perfect example of dealing with and accepting and embracing the dark side as well as the light side. Because he was in bed one night, and he said that was when his big spiritual realization came. He was in bed one night, and he woke up, and his wife was sleeping soundly, and he woke up, and there was this really ominous presence in the room, and he could feel it, like he literally could barely breathe. He said he was so terrified, and he said he sent a thought to it saying, "What do you want?" And it was just there, and it didn't say anything. And at some point, he said he realized that it was the dark side of him, that it actually was a part of him, but a very dark shadow part of him. And when he did that, when he realized that, he said he changed his entire demeanor, and he said he thought to the being, "You are a part of me, and I love you just as you are right now." And he said it was almost instantaneous. It just disappeared, and it never came back. That's part of living the shift. That's part of how we are to resolve duality. It is to be able to pull up all the stuff that we have done, not just here, and not just here in this lifetime, but throughout all of our lifetimes throughout this existence. There is some really dark stuff, and we have all done it. We have all done the most depraved, cruel, senseless things at the bottom of the scale of humanity, and all the way up to the exalted saint-like behaviors and everything in between. That was part of what we wanted to learn. That was what we aspired to get from this existence, right? And no matter what anyone says, we have all done it. We've done all parts of it. And I've even had emails from people who won't even post up on like my I have a Road to Awakening group on Facebook. That's a closed group, and I have people that won't even post on there, and they'll email directly. And like one person emailed me once, and she was like, "I had this dream, and I know it was another life, and I was so cruel and mean. I was so ashamed." And she's like, "Have you ever heard of this, or have you had anything like that?" And I went back to her and I said, "Of course, because we all have." And that's part of why we're all here now, is we are resolving everything, and we're ripping off the Band-Aid, so it's all come up to the surface, individually and collectively, as well as us as a part of Earth, because Earth is evolving and ascending herself. So in doing so, she's bringing up all of this stuff, all the blood that has been shed on the lands all over the world forever, which is seeped into her consciousness. She's actually cleansing from the inside out. So that's detoxing up to the surface, and it's also detoxing up for us collectively and individually. So yes, it's all coming up, but the good part about that is when it comes up to the surface, we can just sweep it away if we want to look at it, if we want to clean it out and say, okay, we're done. I'm done. There is no judgment. I can release judgment on myself. This was part of the game. This was part of the experience. And did I learn the lesson? Did I learn the lesson? And what was the lesson that I wanted to learn? And when we can start looking at things that way, wow, that's a huge load off our shoulders. And I'm working with somebody in the military over in Afghanistan who's having a hard time of it, and that's a collective thing too that's coming up. There's a lot of friction that goes on within people who serve in what we call militaries, because they're serving one people, and yet that would mean by duality purposes that they're not serving another, that they might be harming another. And we're all one. We're all part of the same organism. That would be like an autoimmune disease. And that's how it manifests itself into us individually in the collective, is autoimmune diseases. Because we've turned on ourselves for so long, and yet we're all part of the same thing. If like one of your organs turned on itself, if your immune system turns on itself, guess what? Your body gets sick. and it can't function in its totality. That's how we have to start looking at things. There's no us and them anymore, because we're done with the duality thing. That's me and not me. That's just another part of it. So to resolve it, we have to realize that every plant, every animal, every person on this earth, no matter who they are, no matter how depraved that we might look at them, they have lessons in their own journey, okay? So when we go back to the darkness, what we call the darkness and dark beings, they are just another spirit, another being that is at a different part of the journey, where they are so consumed with those resistant energies and emotions that they just create just a solid presentation of those energies. And again, like I said, when they present themselves to you in your reality, there's also this dual window of what is it within me that I'm repressing so heavily that this is coming up in my reality. So anyway, that's just a very, very light discussion at the very tip of the surface. But the shift to this is this: to get away from, it's time for us to get away from an us versus them. It's time for us to get away from the thought that a dark being is separate from us, because guess what? We're all one. It doesn't matter what they are. If we call them demons or whatever, or dark beings or dark spirits, we're all part of the same game. We're all part of the same existence. So what I tend to do, when I can, as I can see it that way now, there have been a couple of times when I've gone and done house clearings for people, and there has been situations where I've come across dark spirits. In fact, I had a very funny one that I actually laughed about because it tried intimidating me, and that lasted about, 0.5 seconds. But when I just sat in love, and I sat in light, and I went to connect with the being heart to heart. Wow, because they want to be as far away from that as possible. That's that part of the journey for them. They would resist it, and I remember this one particular instance when I just did reach out from my heart with love, and it was like this shrinking back, and there was no fight. There's no resistance, because when we create a war, when we create a fight, this war against evil, this war against blah blah blah, we are creating more resistance and more feelings of separation. The only way for us to resolve that is to stop fighting fire with fire. Stop reacting in the same way, in the same resistant energies that are being given to us, because then we just grow it. And the other thing is, as we look around us, right, we have the wars, we have stuff going on all over the world, and then we look at like the animals and the plants that are dying, and how Earth is it has been suffering. That's all part of this. We've forgotten that we're all part of the same organism. So one step at a time there is no us versus them. There is no that versus me. Even mosquitoes, even bugs, whatever, they are all part of us, the same organism. And when we can stop, and every time we have resistance, every time we have that feeling of darkness, or something that just makes us feel more like angry or fearsome or anxiety ridden, then it's time for us to look in the mirror and say, what is it within myself to resolve so that I don't create this resistance anymore? So on that, I'm going to let you go. This is Angela with this week's Living the Shift.